The reason I brought you here is that, I don't know if you know this, but today there's a lot of discussion about the news and how the news gets reported, what even counts as news, and fake news, and...
I've heard all of that before.
Exactly. That's why I want to talk to you.
Okay, you want the Nellie Bly story. Well, the first thing you have to know is that in my time, women usually had their life stories written for them. But I didn't like the story I was given, so I wrote a new one.
Okay. Listen, this is really good. Save it for the interview.
Okay.
Okay, are we all set, guys?
I'm rolling sound. Quiet.
This is Nellie Bly interview. Take one.
Could you just start by introducing yourself?
Well, I have had hundreds of names, but most people know me as Nellie Bly. I was born just outside of Pittsburgh and christened Elizabeth, but that name never took, and I hated to be called Lizzie. Everyone called me Pink. When my father died, he left no will, and my mother got almost nothing of his estate. The family moved to Pittsburgh for work. My brothers found good white-collar jobs I couldn't get, even though I was better educated. They went off to be clerks and pharmacists, while I was stuck cleaning houses and caring for children.
Shush!
A woman outside her proper sphere is a monstrosity, and what is her sphere? It is defined by a single word: home. A typical modern woman of today runs about seeking work when instead she should focus on making her home a little paradise, herself playing the part of angel.
To the editors of the Pittsburgh Dispatch, maybe if you had any women working for your newspaper, you would not...
What did you write in that letter?
I told them that the women I knew weren't working to annoy old newspapermen, but to survive. And that it was an outright crime that we were blocked from good jobs simply because of our sex. Not all women are rich, and not all women are married, and we don't all have the goddamn luxury of playing house angel. And look at what happened to Mother. Even a married woman, the perfect, respectable, Victorian ideal of a wife, can end up with nothing if the husband dies. That's what I wrote, more or less.
She isn't much for style.
I can assist her with punctuation. What's important is that what she has to say, she says it right out.
George Madden was the editor of the Dispatch, and he hired me for $5 a week, which was slightly more than I would have made as a factory girl. He gave me the name Nellie Bly, because in those days, women journalists were never published under their own names.
I'm Brooke Kroger. I wrote the book Nellie Bly, Daredevil, Reporter, Feminist.
Okay, so Nellie Bly gets hired at the Pittsburgh Dispatch in 1885. Can you talk a little bit about what the status of women in journalism was at that time?
Women had no status in journalism when she started working. They weren't in the newsrooms. The newsrooms were too bawdy, too masculine, too full of tobacco spittoons and other inappropriate things for ladies.
Women are invaluable to the newspaper. They're needed for society, fashion, gossip.
Young womanhood is too sweet and sacred a thing to couple with the life of a newspaper office.
Accuracy is the greatest gift in a journalist. Women are generally worse than men in this regard. They find it impossible not to exaggerate.
So really the only roles for women were as columnists writing on women's themes. They wrote about society, about gardens, about fashion, about food, about all the traditional women's subjects. That's what they did, and that's really all they were needed for.
Nellie Bly, what do we have for you to write this week?
Mr. Madden, I've been writing about fashion and gardens for 2 years. I could be writing about what life is really like for factory girls, or corruption in City Hall, or how the poor are being treated in the prisons, and...
Ah, yes, here it is. Your next assignment shall be an exposé on the latest in hairstyling.
I was far too impatient to work along at the usual duties assigned women at newspapers. Despite my abilities, I was merely a girl doing what girls at newspapers were meant to do. I wanted off the woman's page. Well, it seems I have a lot of work to do, sir.
Put it in this pile before you leave.
New York City had 10 daily newspapers at that time, but there was only one I wanted to work for. I went straight for the World. May I speak to Colonel Cockrell, please?
No, you don't have an appointment.
I do have an idea, a very important one. I could easily take it to another paper. And when that paper is praised for it, who will Colonel Cockrell blame for turning me away?
I'm out in just a moment, so please do your best to expedite this.
Yes, I know that Mr. Pulitzer is keen on selling papers to immigrants, and I have a story that is just the thing to sell those papers. I wish to travel to Europe and return to America in steerage and report on the experience of an immigrant.
That would be a feat. You have the pluck for such a thing?
Of course I do.
A steamer to Europe would be a very expensive expedition, but would you be willing to try an equal feat? Something perhaps even more challenging.
What's the challenge?
To find your way into an insane asylum.
At the time, like a month or two before, there were reports in the newspapers of abuses on Blackwell's Island, which is where the women's asylum was. So there was interest in looking into it, but how would you look into it? How would you get an honest answer? Whether she figured it out or the editor figured it out, that's not really known, but they came up with this idea to infiltrate the asylum.
I could pretend to be insane.
It will be difficult. Well-educated men, doctors, judges, will need to believe you truly insane before they admit you to the island. And you think you could convince them?
I don't know what I can do until I try. Suppose I were to get in. How would I get out?
I don't know, somehow. We'll get you out. What's important is for you to get in. Remind me of your name?
Nellie Bly.
Use the name Nellie Brown. We'll ask for her when the time comes. If you can do this, you might just have yourself a job.
What a difficult task. To appear before a crowd of people and convince them that I was insane. I had never even been near an insane person before. I did not sleep, and when dawn came to chase away the night, I felt I was in a fit mood for my mission. I was Nellie Brown, the insane girl. I first thought it best to go to a boarding home for working women. I knew if I made a house full of women believe me crazy, they would never rest until I was gone.
What kind of work are you trying to get?
Everything is so sad.
Textiles?
I don't know. It's all so sad.
Would you like to be a nurse for children and wear a nice white cap and apron?
I don't know how. Everything is so sad. Poor Loon.
She'll murder us all before morning.
I had put all the women in a terrible state of fright. A policeman was sent to take me at once.
Put out your tongue.
I don't want to.
Put out your tongue when I tell you.
What drugs have you been taking?
What are drugs?
Do you ever hear voices or see faces on the wall?
All the time.
Positively demented.
A hopeless case.
Send her to the island.
An island? That sounds delightful.
No. It would kill her. It's the only option.
After this, I began to have a smaller regard for the ability of doctors than I ever had before, but a greater one for myself. What is this place?
Blackwell's Island. An insane place. You'll never get out.
I'm so sorry. This is so silly. You knew where you were. It was Blackwell's Island. It was the place you were trying to get to.
Shh. This is the best part. Once inside, I cast aside the insane act. I behaved just as I would outside on a normal day. I hoped the doctors might notice I did not belong. Still, to be a companion day and night of senseless, chattering lunatics, to sleep with them, to eat with them, to be considered one of them, was an uncomfortable position. They took away my notebook and my pencil when I arrived. When I asked for them back, they insisted I had not brought a pencil. I was advised to fight against the imaginations of my brain. The doctors and nurses did not at all care that I was perfectly sane. We were compelled to sit in the room all day on straight back benches. Every patient was stiff and sore and tired. What, excepting torture, would produce insanity quicker than this treatment? The insane asylum on Blackwell's Island is a human rat trap. It is easy to get in, but once there, it is impossible to get out.
But you got out.
Eventually. A lawyer from the world sprung me after 10 days.
It was really a phenomenal stunt to accomplish. Out she emerges with this grand 2-week-long feature extravaganza telling every single aspect of this harrowing experience, which she did not stint on details. It was something the newspapers hadn't quite seen before.
The Madhouse piece was the first of its kind, an undercover assignment resulting in a sensational exposé.
Yeah, sensational is definitely a good description. Your story reads more like Edgar Allan Poe or maybe Dickens.
Everything I wrote was true to my experience. And I am happy to say that as a result of my reporting, the city of New York appropriated $1 million more per year for the care of the insane.
But again, I guess I'm just wondering, with this kind of highly subjective storytelling approach, are you at all worried about sensationalizing?
Who cares what the presentation is? What matters is the facts. And I got the facts. And what's equally important is that I got people to care. With the Madhouse story, I invented a whole new kind of reporting. We called it stunt journalism, and I invented it. Don't cut that. I invented it.
Nellie Bly didn't invent stunt journalism. It had been going on for maybe 40 years. It had not been done by a 23-year-old, adorable young woman. That was what was new. The Madhouse expose put her on center stage among not only women journalists, but journalists, period.
A plucky young woman, Miss Bly is pretty when she talks and smiles, for then her face brightens up and her eyes sparkle, and there is a turn at the corners of her mouth that is fascinating. Very kind of them to say. Is Nellie Bly pretty? Yes. Is Nellie Bly a suffragist? Yes. Does Nellie Bly chew gum? Yes. A very ordinary, everyday young woman, rather slight in form, masculine in her taste, and a man-hater from way back. What? Nellie Brown, the insane girl, was only the first role I played. Mrs. Helen Walcott got herself arrested for grand larceny. Don't ask how. I wanted to show the treatment of women prisoners. I played hundreds of roles. I was never afraid to put myself in danger for the greater good. For this stunt, Nora Simpson went to a free clinic in perfect health.
What was your name again?
Nora Simpson.
Nora, I need to cut that tonsil out.
Oh, no!
Her voice was so original. You'd see her name in the headline and you knew it was going to be a good ride. Who had their name in the headline of every story they ever wrote? Think about that in a time when people didn't even really have bylines. Amazing.
Alice Bostwick tried to uncover what became of all the unwanted baby waifs in the city. There is a baby I wish to dispose of.
Boy or girl?
Oh, a girl.
Too bad. They're very hard to get rid of and go for lower prices.
She came from nowhere and nobody, and it helps her to see the world in a kind of different way. So when she does a week as a chorus girl, it's not about who are these floozies. It's about people who have to go support their families and are finding a way to make it work. She always picked subjects that had a social justice aspect.
I wanted to reform the world. One story wouldn't do that, but I was doing one story every week. In this one, I played the wife of a man in the patent medicine business and asked a notorious lobbyist if he could assist in blocking a piece of legislation.
I do believe I could persuade 6 members of the committee to kill the bill. For $1,000?
My husband will be ever so pleased to hear of the committee's cooperation. Would you be so kind as to give me each and every one of their names?
Nellie Bly must be admitted to be the champion storyteller of the age. I have no objection to the attention she has now paid to me, but I do object to groundless statements for the purpose of selling newspapers.
I only lie about my age and my name.
It's not hard to see why some people oppose stunt journalism quite seriously. The ethics of it are huge. I mean, it's lying. These are people who are dedicated to truth. So how do you start from a premise that's not entirely truthful?
My mission was always the same, to show life as it really was, unvarnished and true. I could not expose those truths if I knocked on the door, said, "I'm Nellie Bly, a reporter from the New York World. Could you please tell me how you swindle the poor?" If you have to lie, a little bit, to get to a greater truth, I feel it's justified. Don't you?
I guess so, but I'm not a reporter, so I don't
Well,
have to...
that's what I was doing with my stunts.
Okay. What was your greatest stunt?
Is this a good time?
What is needed?
I wish to travel around the world.
Around the world?
Everybody's read Around the World in 80 Days, right? But nobody's ever tried it in real life. I've been looking into it, and I think I can beat Phileas Fogg's record. I can do it in less than 80 days.
I must say this idea has been brought up before.
Aha! There's already interest. May I try it?
It was our intention to send a man.
So what man will you send?
It's impossible for you to travel around the world. You're a woman. You'd need a protector. You need help with all of your luggage. You don't speak anything but English. God knows how many trunks you'd need to carry. You need assistance with all of those. There's no telling what dangers you'd encounter, or how much baggage or bundles you would require. No one but a man could do this.
Well, start your man around the world, and I'll start myself the same day for some other newspaper and beat him.
And without a hint of fear or trepidation, Nellie Bly set forth on her journey.
And she's going around the world?
The New York World has just surpassed all the former achievements of men by inducing a woman to start off on a journey around the globe without a big trunk and with only one dress to wear.
We must recognize Nellie Bly's heroic work of circumnavigation without the accompaniment of a 4-story Saratoga trunk. The most remarkable feature of this progressive undertaking is that Miss Bly takes only one dress and no trunk.
I'm doing something no girl has ever done, setting world records. And all people seem to care about is my goddamn luggage.
Nellie Bly's not only a smart girl, she's a mighty brave one.
Can't argue with that. Though perhaps they meant I was brave to pack so lightly.
How are the streets here compared to New York?
The streets in New York are better.
Trains never run off the track in England.
Yeah, too slow for that. I might have seen more while traveling through France, if the windows had been clean. I found the Italians disagreeable as well. The telegraph man in Brindisi didn't know where New York was.
Cable from Bly. It appears so far she's had tea with Jules Verne and is otherwise rather bored. Not as sensational as we'd hoped. If she's traveling too quickly to absorb what is going on around her, we'll have to find another way to engage our readers. The New York World offers to furnish a first-class trip to Europe, all free of cost, to the person who sends to the world the nearest guest to the exact time in days, hours, minutes, and seconds that are required for Nellie Bly's globe-girdling tour.
I have to ask at this point, what were your journalistic intentions with this stunt?
100,000 ballots!
It kind of seems like the stunt part of stunt journalism is taking over at the expense of the journalism part. Like, the stunt has become the story as opposed to a way to get at the story.
600,000 ballots! I never thought we could print so many newspapers.
A tour worthy a queen. Everywhere I went, Americans turned out to do honor to an American girl who had been the first to make a record of a trip around the world. And I rejoiced with them that it was an American girl who had done it. Sure, maybe I could not vote, but I could show what a modern girl could do once she tossed off the petticoats and prejudices.
Her traveling in this way around the world in 72 days was very much about that new American girl. She was staking out new territory for what was appropriate for a young woman and what she could accomplish successfully without harm.
Exactly, and I did it all without ever once getting seasick.
Earlier, you said something about how you didn't like the story you were given by your place and time. So you decided you had to write your own story. Can you say more about that?
Yes. Look, Nellie Bly is basically a fictional character. Have you noticed that in these stories I've been telling, she always wins? She's always brave. She's always the star. Nellie Bly did impossible things. But by pretending to be her, I changed what was possible. In 1885, it was a given that a woman couldn't be a journalist. Back then, it was common knowledge that a woman couldn't travel around the world. It was assumed that a woman could never throw herself into adventure and escape unharmed, without the help of a man. I'm a reporter. The facts matter to me. But facts alone can't change the world. You need stories for that. And of all the stories I've told, the Nellie Bly story was the very best.